You're texting a girl and she seems to like you. She gave you her number and maybe she was even enthusiastic to meet up, but then her responses to you get slower and slower until finally she stops responding completely. It's happened to us all and it's frustrating as when this happens, especially if it's a girl you really like and especially if you don't meet girls you like all that often. So the question is this salvageable? Can you get her back? Should you even try to get her back? And if so, how? And to answer the first question, is this salvageable? The answer is yes. If you don't make any of the 5 mistakes I'm going to cover here, then you absolutely can win this girl's interest back. And in fact, not only will you regain her attraction and respect, but if you do just 1 or 2 of the tips I'm going to tell you today, such as adopting the Stalin doctrine I'm going to talk about, I guarantee you the same girl who lost attraction and pulled away is going to be chasing you and begging you to have sex with her. So if there's a girl who's ghosting you right now, flaking you, or won't respond to your texts, got that girl in your mind? I promise you, there is a pretty good chance you will be running your hands along her naked body in the next 2 to 8 weeks if you follow the 5 rules I'm going to tell you in this video. So mistake number 1 is defeatism, being too quick to expect failure, thinking that just because the girl pulled away or lost interest that it's all over and you'll never see her again. And in my experience, this is wrong. When a girl stops responding, as long as you play it cool, as long as you don't let your emotions take over, I'd say you have about a 50% chance that you will get her into bed at some point in the future. Now, there are a few caveats to this. First off, it may well be over for now, meaning you're probably not going to get her back this week, this month, or even this year. So yes, if a girl is pulled away, definitely don't pin any hopes on getting her back anytime soon. Get busy meeting new girls, always. However, it is important to realize, if even just for morale reasons, no rejection is ever final. As long as you live in the same city as this girl and you don't move and she doesn't move, eventually you probably will bump into her again at some point. And if you're always working on yourself to be a more attractive man, then odds are you will get her into bed the next time you see her. And this has happened to me over and over again in my life. There'll be some girl I'm really into, we're texting, then suddenly she pulls away, she stops responding, and I don't chase her, I don't try to force the situation, I just forget about her, I archive the text conversation so I don't have to see it and be reminded of her. And not always, but very frequently, it has happened to me that, 2 months, 6 months, a year will pass, and suddenly the girl will get back into contact with me out of nowhere asking to hang out. Or I'll see her out in person at a bar, approach her again, and ultimately take her home that night. And you would be amazed by how still on it can be even years later when you've completely given up hope.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
I even had it where one really hot girl I slept with who ghosted me afterwards suddenly contacted me out of the blue 4 years later, saying the sex was really good and inviting me to come stay with her in Dubai. I remember another time I matched with this girl called Evie on Tinder, very hot college student, 21 years old, brown hair, slim, big boobs, and we messaged back and forth for a while, but ultimately she stopped responding and she ghosted me. And I didn't chase, I didn't beg, I didn't plead, I just ignored it, moved on, focused on meeting other girls. I went out to a club that very same night, I did 10 to 15 approaches, just completely forgot about Eve. And what do you know? About a year later, I see her out at a bar. So I approached her, I joked around about how she'd ghosted me on Tinder, and we actually hit it off in person. And long story short, she tells me her parents are away that weekend, brings me back to her house, and we make love that night. So the point I'm getting at here is it's never over. So long as you live in the same city as the girl, it isn't over until one of you is dead.
And if you beat him with a gun, you better kill him, because he'll keep coming back and back until one of you is dead.
So don't be defeatist. When a girl pulls away or ghosts you, don't view it as a failure. Don't view it as necessarily the end of that story. Things change, and they can change very fast. There is a very good chance you will see her again. And like I said, if you've been working on yourself and self-perfecting, improving your skills with women, odds are when you run into her again, as you inevitably will, you will get her into bed and it will be a lot of fun. However, for that to happen, you definitely need to avoid making mistake number 2, and that is chasing her. And this is an obvious one, but it's still very important to bear in mind, especially when emotions are running high. When a girl pulls away, when she goes cold or loses interest, do not chase her. Do not beg, do not plead, do not suggest another date or ask anything of her. Chasing her and acting needy in this moment causes you to lose the frame, and if you chase her and demonstrate neediness here, as so many guys do, you will usually repulse her so badly that it will be permanently over and there will be nothing you could do to get her back. Now, this advice of don't chase a girl when she pulls away is kind of obvious. You know, at this point, every guy logically knows this. I'm not telling you anything new here by repeating it, but it's really good to bear it in mind because, again, like I said, when your emotions are hot, when the girl has just pulled away and when you really, really wanted her, every cell in your body is going to be screaming at you to chase her, to try to lock in a plan, to try to get her to give you one last chance. Don't do it, ever. It's a trap. It's a mistake. Chasing her is how you lose her. At least chasing her right after she's pulled away. Now, that being said, there's actually a little bit of nuance here that a lot of guys miss. When a girl goes cold and stops responding, this does not always mean you should completely stop texting her. It does mean you should absolutely not ask her for a date or mention anything about meeting up. However, what you can do sometimes is maybe wait a couple days or a week and then you send the girl what Todd Valentine calls value offering texts. And a value offering text, as Todd explains it, is basically a text where you're not asking anything of the girl, you're not asking her a question that she needs to respond to, and you're not asking her for a date or even saying anything remotely close to suggesting a date. What a value offering text is instead is just something funny. It might be a funny story or anecdote from your life, something that just happened to you. It might be an observation or remark about something you saw. Maybe it reminded you of the girl or it related to something you talked about, i.e. callback humor. It could also be a funny meme you saw online. And basically, if a girl has gone cold on you and stopped responding, sometimes it is better to just go completely silent on your end and let that interaction completely die. But other times, the reason she went cold is actually because she's genuinely been busy. She hasn't had time to text. She might have forgotten about you to some extent. And so you need a way to re-spark that conversation, but without doing anything needy or chasing, such as asking her a question or suggesting plans. And in that case, sending her a pure value offering text like this, which doesn't require any response from her, can be a great way to gauge her interest and get her responding again without losing the frame. And it doesn't really cause you to lose value in her eyes because this isn't chasing. It's not asking for any kind of compliance. You're just sharing something with her, like a meme or a story or a funny observation, and there's no response required on her end. So that's literally the least needy thing you can possibly do, short of not texting her at all. So when she goes cold, do not chase, meaning either don't contact her again at all, which is usually the best option, but at bare minimum, definitely do not suggest meeting up further. What you can do sometimes, and what sometimes will get the girl responding again, is to wait a few days, wait a week, and then send her some kind of funny story from your life or a meme or something. And that basically just functions as a way of giving her one last opportunity to re-engage with you in case she had forgotten about you or, wasn't deliberately ignoring you on purpose. But do not chase, do not beg, do not plead. Obviously, don't lose face, don't lose the frame. And that leads me into the third big mistake guys make when a girl pulls away, which is acting butthurt. This is where the guy gets angry, starts lashing out at the girl, blaming her, name calling, acting like a petulant little child. And obviously, this one is also rooted in letting your emotions take over, which is always a bad thing in these kinds of situations. And the example I want to give of this, because it genuinely shocked me, it happened to me just a few weeks ago. I was talking to this girl I know, and she showed me a guy she'd been texting on Hinge. And basically, I think she went silent on him for a few days, just because she was genuinely busy with work and stuff. But she was still interested in this guy. She had just forgotten to get around to responding to him. But he then sent her, and she showed me this, fucking walls of text, and we're talking not paragraphs but like a full short story worth of text saying she's a bitch, she's low quality, she's not a serious person, I would never date someone like you, I'm a high value man, I wear a 40,000 euro watch, all this stuff. And I was fucking astonished. It seemed like something out of a movie. I could not believe a guy like this actually exists in real life. And I looked at his fucking profile picture and he actually looked normal. He was like a handsome athletic dude, about 40 years old, in shape, clearly made good money, well dressed, and yet he was going fucking apeshit, crying and pissing and shitting his pants, sending this girl 20,000 word essays because she hadn't responded to him for a couple days. And so this is a prime example of what I mean by acting butthurt. It's never a good look, and it will immediately kill any hope of ever seeing that girl again. Getting angry at her, blaming her, trying to get the last word, that's a big one. It's all a very, very bad idea. When a girl stops responding to you, just let it go. Take the L with grace, take it with dignity, don't say a word. don't text her again unless it's a pure value offering text like we just discussed. But definitely do not get angry at her or show her any kind of emotion at all. Aside from chasing and begging, this is the absolute most repellent, unattractive thing a guy can do. It says all the wrong things about you. And in this day and age, with screenshots and group chats and Facebook groups and all the rest of it, you really do not want to make enemies of girls in this way. You know, as they say, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 20 seconds to ruin it. If you let yourself get angry, if you get butthurt and send a girl some kind of mean or nasty text, it could have very negative long-term consequences for you beyond just losing that girl. You know, she could post it on social media, for example. It could even go viral in your city. Or maybe in a year, you meet some girl you really like, but it turns out she was a friend of that other girl and she sees the screenshots. There's just 100 different ways for it to go wrong and blow up in your face, and there's no advantage to doing it. It's just pure downside. So do not do it. No matter how badly you feel like the girl has wronged you, nothing good is going to come out of reacting with anger. Just ignore it. Archive or delete the text conversation, change her name to do not contact, even block her if you like, whatever you got to do, but do not send her something angry or mean-spirited. It is never ever going to lead to anything good. Whenever you make enemies of a girl, you are shooting yourself in the dick. And what I would advise you to do, especially when you're texting girls, is just to adopt like a blonde surfer dude type attitude to everything. You know, when a girl cancels plans, all good. When she flakes you, no worries. Nothing is a big deal. Everything is chill. You're going to be having a great fucking time tonight, whether she happens to be there with you or not.
Do try and come back.
Maybe. Can't promise anything, kid. All I can promise you is I'm going to win this game tonight. Get laid afterwards. If you're there, you're there. If not...
That's the attitude you gotta have. Very nonchalant, totally carefree, nothing matters except sun, surf, and good times. And when a girl flakes you or pulls away, not only do you not get angry, you barely even notice that it happened. And a great model for this is, Matthew McConaughey's character in Dazed and Confused.
All right.
Oh, Christ.
I mean, just look at this guy's face. Just pure blissful ignorance. Doesn't give a shit about anything. If a girl rejected him or lost interest or pulled away, he probably wouldn't even notice it had happened. So be like that. When a girl pulls away and when you're just about to send her that text, just stop and ask yourself, what would Matthew McConaughey do? Would he send this text? If the answer is no, do not send it. Don't get butthurt. Don't get angry. Don't feel entitled to a response from someone who's basically still a stranger. But even more than that, be so chill and blissfully stupid that you don't even notice when a girl has rejected you. Now, you might be wondering at this point, well, how the hell do I do that? I really did like this girl and I almost never meet a girl I like this much. So how can I just be so blasé and nonchalant about things? And that's where we start to get into the fourth and really the most lethal mistake on this list. And that is not having a full pipe of leads. As Dan Kennedy, the famous marketing guru, always said, 1 is the most dangerous number in business. Having one big customer, one big supplier, one payment processor, only one source of leads. In business, having just one of anything is always sooner or later going to lead to massive disaster because you have what's called a single point of failure. And it's exactly the same with girls. It's exactly the same with dating as a single guy. You never want to be texting just one girl. Never, never, never. You need to fill your pipe with new leads at all times. Even and especially when there is that one girl you really, really like. And this is actually counterintuitive, but when you meet that girl who you finally see relationship potential with, the tendency is to take your foot off the gas and to stop approaching other girls and getting other leads. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That is precisely how you're going to end up losing that girl you really liked. So what I would tell you is when you finally meet a girl who you are absolutely crazy about, that is actually the very moment when it's most important to double down on meeting more girls, because the more girls you're texting at any time, the less likely it is you will lose any particular one. Very, very counterintuitive, I know, but it's absolutely true. You need to maintain an abundance mindset. Now, this is true in all of life. It's very much true with money. It's true with success, but it's especially true with dating and with women. If you're not making constant and tireless efforts to maintain a state of abundance with girls, you are automatically falling into scarcity. And scarcity is pussy repellent. Women are attracted to guys who have an abundance of other women in their life. guys who have an abundance of other options. They are repelled by guys who have no other women in their life and no other options. And before you get mad at women for this and go on a MGTOW rant about how women are all superficial and they're all going to hit the wall and regret this one day, you need to realize that attraction is not a choice. The attraction that women feel for a guy who has an abundance of other women is not voluntary, and the repulsion they feel for a guy who's in scarcity is also not something they choose to feel. It's not some personal preference of theirs. It's completely instinctive and it's hardwired into their biology. So I realize it can seem unfair or superficial or shallow when we say you need to seem like you have a lot of other women in your life or else the girl will be repulsed. But if you complain about that, or if you blame girls for being superficial, you are literally acting exactly the same as the bitter 35-year-old woman who says that men her age are predators for being attracted to women in their 20s. Do you understand that? Think through what I'm saying here, because this is a really, really important point. As men, we're biologically hardwired to be attracted to youth and beauty, right? So it doesn't matter if you're 45, if you see a young, healthy girl who's 21 years old with smooth skin and big boobs, and she's wearing a little string bikini that looks like a piece of dental floss, you will feel attraction to her. And it's not a choice. It's not something you have any voluntary control over. It's 100% part of your natural instincts as a man and even simply as a mammal. And obviously, when older women get mad about this, we all see how silly they're being, right? As if we could choose not to be attracted to some hot little 20-year-old, or as if being attracted to that fertile girl makes us immature or a predator or something. That's obviously completely retarded, right? So as guys, we all recognize that when it's applied to us, but we very rarely think this through and look at how that applies on the other side as well. Because just as you are involuntarily attracted to girls who are young and fertile, for example, and it's not some kind of moral failing on your part, well, in the exact same way, those same young and fertile girls are organically and naturally attracted to guys who have a lot of other options. As men, we're attracted to youth and beauty. Women are not attracted to youth, and they're really not that attracted to beauty either. What they are attracted to is, as the old saying goes, what do women want? Women want what other women want. In other words, women are attracted to guys who have a lot of other options. And that's not something they control. That's not a choice they have decided on. It's deep, deep, deep hardwired into them on a genetic level, and it is never going to change. Just like how men of all ages wanting to have sex with 20-year-old girls is also never going to change. So getting angry at women for this or claiming they're being superficial or shallow or something is very, very silly. It just makes you into the male counterpart of that bitter 40-year-old woman who gets mad that men her age still want to boink 19-year-olds. All right, so women want you to be in abundance and they're repelled by guys who are in scarcity. So what now? What's the practical application of this? The practical application is that you should always, and I do mean always, be texting multiple girls at any one time. You should always have many different irons in the fire. You should always be filling your pipe with fresh new leads. Now, getting constant new leads means you need to be doing cold approach regularly, doing online dating, or better yet, doing both. You gotta keep it bouncing. A shark's always gotta keep moving. You gotta keep your pipe constantly churning with new leads, new girls, new opportunities. And this is how you get that abundance mentality that just makes everything work. You should always be texting at least 3 to 10 girls at any one time. Now, when you get a girlfriend or a couple girlfriends or a couple friends with benefits, then you can scale it back and calm down. But right now, if you don't have any of that, what you do have is time. Time to approach, time to get more numbers, time to do lots of lead acquisition because you have nothing else going on. You won't have time to do this as much when you're juggling a couple girlfriends, so make the most of it now while you do. So always be texting 3 to 10 girls at a time. Some of them are going to be getting warmer, some will be getting colder, some will be agreeing to dates, others will be dropping away. But the big benefit of running volume like this is you're never all that focused on any one particular girl because there literally isn't even enough time in the day to think that much about her. And so when one of these girls drops off, if she pulls away, most times you don't even notice because you're already so busy, you're already so caught up in the hustle and bustle of juggling all these other girls that when a girl does disappear for a while, if anything, it's actually somewhat of a relief because now there's one less extra thing you got to juggle. And the point is, this gives you a whole different attitude and a whole different demeanor in your texts, which will cause girls to stick to you like glue. And this leads us directly into the final big mistake guys make when a girl pulls away, and that is what I call ignoring the Stalin doctrine. So there's a famous quote attributed to Stalin during World War II: "Quantity has a quality all of its own." And what he meant was, supposedly someone had warned him that the quality of the Russian army at the time was poor. Their training and weapons were inferior to those of the Germans, to which Stalin replied that quantity has a quality all of its own. Meaning, in other words, at a certain point, it doesn't matter how badly trained or equipped your army is, if you just outnumber the enemy by so much, if you just have so much more quantity, then you can completely overwhelm them and crush them, even if the quality of your army is poor, which is indeed exactly how it played out with the Russians and the Germans in World War II. And this principle, what I've named the Stalin doctrine, that quantity has a quality all of its own, this is absolutely true in dating just as much as it's true in war. Meaning, when you run volume, when you just focus on getting a massive number of leads, girls you're texting, when you constantly keep your phone full of fresh new girls at all times, this tends to overwhelm everything else. It basically just brute force overwhelms any problems, flaws, or even legitimate weaknesses you have. It makes it so that it's virtually impossible to fail. And you can make a lot of boo-boos. You can make a lot of mistakes. You can have significant and legitimate value problems. You can be poor, broke, ugly, be kind of awkward, not have much going on in your life. But when you're running volume, when you're just constantly approaching new girls, constantly getting new leads, always juggling 5 to 10 text conversations with different girls, it just gives you this kind of nimbus, this glow, this fucking force field of protection and grace where everything just works out for you. You always know the right thing to say, you always make the right moves, you're completely on top of the game. And even though you might have significant and real problems, the girls just get completely swept up in you. It's like you have the mandate of heaven on your side. And this isn't just a numbers game type thing either. It's obvious on the face of it that the more different phone numbers you get, the more likely it is to work with any girl, because that's just statistics, right? And that's true. But what I'm talking about, the power of quantity, the power of running massive volume, it actually goes a lot deeper than that. See, the reason it's so important to focus on quantity over quality in dating, at least in the beginning anyway, is that when you are texting this many girls at a time, it fundamentally changes your vibe, it changes your aura, and this does come through in your texts, and it can't be faked. It makes you seem like you're a guy who has a massive amount of women in your life, because technically speaking, you kind of do. Even if you're texting 10 different girls and you're not sleeping with any of them yet, just the fact that you do have those 10 different potential options in your pocket will give your texts a completely different vibe than what comes across when you only have 1 or 2 options. Now, the other thing about running volume is it means you will be in a constant state of momentum with texting girls. And this also makes them much, much more likely to want to see you. It's kind of paradoxical, but sometimes I'll go several months without meeting any new women just because I'm busy hooking up with my existing girlfriends and fuck buddies and so on. And by the law of abundance, you would think this would make it easier to get new women because you wouldn't be as needy, and that's sort of true. But what I found is actually it's not so great, because despite the fact that I'm getting laid, I'm not in momentum with texting new girls and working new leads. And that means that when I do meet a new girl, I'm kind of rusty with it. And this will mean that in turn, I make mistakes that I wouldn't have otherwise made, which can cause her to pull away and lose interest. So for this reason, I am telling you, if a girl is pulled away, one of the reasons she pulled away is precisely because you aren't in momentum and you aren't in abundance. When you are texting lots of girls at one time, when you are in this state of abundance, which makes you nonchalant, non-needy, this comes through in your texts. But you're also in a state of momentum with texting itself, which means you always have good things to say, you have good comebacks queued up, you're just very sharp and quick-witted, you're creative at passing tests and dealing with objections. So do not ignore the Stalin doctrine. Understand that in dating, quantity has a quality all of its own. And very often, the reason a girl pulled away is not because of something you did, but because of something you didn't do. And what you didn't do is to have many other irons in the fire, many other leads in your pipeline. Because when you do have all those other options, when you're juggling tons of other girls, I'm telling you, the girl just knows. She can just sense it from your texts, from your response times. She just knows that this guy has other options. This guy has other girls. I better meet up with him quick before someone else does. And like I said before, this cannot be faked. Trying to fake this abundance by waiting a long time to respond or any of these other tricks and tactics, I'm telling you, it never works. The girl can see through it like glass. The only way to come off to girls like you're a guy who's in abundance with women is to actually be in abundance with women. Trying to fake it never works. If anything, it usually backfires. It's got to be real abundance, and that's an abundance that you can only get by constantly filling your pipe with new leads, constantly getting new phone numbers, constantly approaching and or matching with new girls. And like I said, when you do finally meet that one girl who you do see real relationship potential with, that is when you actually need to double down on this the most. Do not relax. Do not stop getting new leads. You know, the moment you finally meet a girl who you really care about getting, that is actually the time when it's most important to proactively force yourself to go out and get 5 new phone numbers. And that's how you'll end up getting that girl. I promise you. That's how you'll make it so she doesn't want to pull away. But if you put your blinders on, if you fall into a scarcity trance and focus completely on that one girl, that is how you'll lose her. That is how you'll scare her away. It happens every time. It's like a law of nature. So do not try and fight nature. All right. So I've showed you the 5 deadliest mistakes guys make when a girl loses interest. What I want to show you next is arguably even more important, and that is how to stop girls losing interest in the first place, how to stop them flaking, how to stop them ghosting, and this all boils down to certain texts you can send a girl which keep her hooked on you and get her desperate to meet up with you in person as quickly as possible. So click the link in the description now and watch my special training video on the next page where I will show you the exact text you need to send a girl to make her beg to come over to your place and get naked with you tonight. I can't show you this on YouTube because it's a little bit too explicit, but click the link below to watch my video on the next page and I will show you the exact words you need to say and the one text you need to send to take any girl from not interested and not giving a damn about you to bent over, panties around her ankles, and begging you to take her now. Click the link in the description to watch that now.